Welcome back to the Chefpreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Andres. So I have a really exciting guest today. I can't wait to interview her. She's incredible. And if this is your first time listening to us or watching us here on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that share button, share it with anybody that you know that wants to watch this podcast. And just again, really excited to be able to bring up Chef Rochelle today. She's from San Antonio. And again, she's kind of a firecracker, if I could say it that way, which is good. But let me bring her up. Chef Rochelle, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I am doing well, Chef. Thanks for having me.
Yes, it's exciting. It's been a long time coming. I know that we have had some scheduling things going on. I know that you're busy. We're all busy. We're trying to get there, but really excited to have you on the podcast today, and excited to really dive into your story, kind of learn about who you are, and just kind of hear about your journey, which I think is very interesting. And I know you're full time in the business. If you want to just let everybody know what's your business, just to start off there, what is it called and where are you located?
My business is Culinary Concierge. We're based in San Antonio, Texas, and we provide private dining experiences in the comfort of your own home, including meal prep. And I have now introduced grazing tables.
Ooh, really cool. Very nice. Culinary Concierge. I love that name. We've talked about that before. It's a really good name. It exactly signifies what people do when they're wanting a personal chef to come and kind of treat them like royalty and kind of set up everything for them and not have to worry about anything. So I love that.
Yeah.
I want to dive in a little bit, Chef, and start to ask some questions about your background. I think that it's really intriguing, and I know that you didn't necessarily start with being a chef. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
So tell us a little bit about that.
So I think a lot of times you grow up in the house cooking and you love it, right? But you don't ever think that it's something that you're going to do for a living. So I have always been in sales. As a matter of fact, I got my real estate license in the late 90s. And that was where I built my business. And so I had lots of relationships, lots of people that I would meet. And then I also had entertainment. And so me and my sister would entertain a lot, my family, all the time. And we loved it. And then in 2007, when the real estate market crashed, I thought, oh my goodness, I am just over this, because real estate is always up and down.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, I called my sister one day, and she lived in Austin, Texas at the time. And I said, do you want to start a catering service? She said, yeah. And so we did. And so I'm in sales and also just kind of learning the business. I went to work for a caterer here in San Antonio. And just we were making $9 an hour. And I had no idea what catering involved, right? I didn't know. And so we would get there, set everything up, the tables, the food, the serving, unload, pack up. I mean, I would get home at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I would go get my check the next day or next week, and it would be like $90.
Wow.
And I was like, and I did that for a while because I needed to learn the business.
Yeah.
So it just so happened to be at one day, I just got an opportunity to cater somebody's party. Somebody just asked me just to cater. And I thought, wow. And it was a retirement party for like 200 people.
Wow, that's a big jump from,
Yeah. Yeah.
from where you were at.
I was basically, I'm sorry?
That was a big jump from where you were at. I mean, 200
Yes.
people, it's not like, hey, that's just, it's one thing to cook for your family or different things. And as you started doing catering, and then it's like, oh, 200 people, here we go.
Yeah. And so I didn't know really, I didn't have a kitchen. I didn't have all of the things in place that was necessary to take on that volume in regards to guests. But it was 6 months on the books, and I did everything that was necessary to get that event catered, and I just started going from there.
That's awesome.
Um,
What year specifically was that? Was that in still 2007?
That was in 2010.
Oh, 2010. Okay. Okay.
2010. And there was a little bit of a break because, as I mentioned at the outset, when I called my sister and I asked her about starting the catering business, she was actually the following year, that was in 2007. So actually in 2008, she was actually diagnosed with cancer.
Mm,
And
sorry to hear
so through that process of trying to learn the business and trying to take care of her, then we had to learn how to eat a certain way in regards to cancer. So, in making sure that her diet was in line with her doctor's orders and things like that. And so we we started doing meal prep. And so I did that in the interim with catering. So it took, and then she passed away in 2010, April,
that.
and then that first gig in 2010 was in October.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a touching story. And your sister she was a big part, obviously, of kind
Yeah.
of you starting up and getting this going.
Yeah. She was the other half. Absolutely. She was my best friend and she was the other half. And so
Mhm.
I continued. And it's for a lot, for more reasons than one, but specifically I told her that's what I was going to focus on. And that's what I've been doing.
It's beautiful. That's beautiful. So 2010, so did you cater throughout 2010 to, like, for over the next 10 years? Was it kind of like, were you still doing real estate and that? What happened kind of in that gap?
So real estate was still volatile. And so I didn't really love real estate as much as I love cooking. So I still have an active real estate license. I know the lingo, but meal prep and food is my passion.
Hmm.
And so during the time, now we're in 2011, I am in my kitchen meal prepping, doing meals, and I get a call from the dietitian of the professional basketball team here. She heard about me because the name of my catering company at that time was DR Healthy Catering.
Okay.
And so it sounds like Doctor. It sounds like Doctor Healthy, but it's really my middle name and my sister's middle name, and so it comes up as DR Healthy. And so she was looking for. This was during the lockout, and so she was looking for someone that would help her with the players as far as their nutrition. And so she called me, and she called myself and two other caterers, and we had to come in for an audition to kind of see, who this caterer was going to be.
Wow.
And I went in, and it was myself and the same caterer when I worked 9 years for $9 an hour. It was her.
No way.
Yeah, and so
That's
it's like,
that's like one of those movie stories where it's like, okay, you see each other from across the room and you're like, okay, so that's what we
right.
do now.
That's
Um,
exactly how it happened. Yeah.
now I hope I know who won, right?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
they're
so
like, man, we should have gave her a raise and kept her. No, I'm just joking.
yeah, and so I got my opportunity just to get introduced into. We only got the training camp. We only did the training camp, but still, it was an opportunity for me to get my feet wet, and so
Hmm.
I had to learn again how to cook for these players who were health conscious, and it's their job, and you need to support what they're doing. And so we would take breakfast to the training camp and lunch to the training camp. And we did that for 2 weeks. And so that really was a stepping stone to my clientele over the next probably 10 years. Just that opportunity there.
Wow, that's awesome. And right now, like, tell us a little bit about when you transitioned a little bit more into. So you did your catering. I know that recently you've launched Culinary Concierge, but tell us a little bit more about the transition from the catering into the personal chef space.
So when I stopped the got the opportunity to cater for the San Antonio Spurs, they're always looking for personal chefs, just individual in the home. And so there was one player that called me, the dietitian again called me, and she wanted to know, did I do any personal chef work? And to be honest, I had never done any personal chef work, just exclusive in the home.
Mhm.
And I told her I'll try it. And so he gets on the phone and he says, "Can you come tomorrow?" And I'm thinking, "Oh my goodness, I don't even know what I'm going to cook." And so I go and I cook him a meal, and then I started personally cooking just for him and two other players. And so from that experience, each of those players would have someone new or different at their table. And so when it came up for anyone wanting a chef, a personal chef, I became the trusted individual. They would call me.
Wow.
And I just started loving that process. And so culinary concierge came in because there are different aspects of the business where now I needed to clone myself. And so how do you provide the level of business, the who has the work ethic to take care of certain individuals in the privacy of their own homes? And so um, we started with that, and here we are.
That's awesome. Tell me about a little bit about just like, I know that you're focused because it's really intriguing to me. And I feel like this happens a lot with chefs that not only we coach, but, we talk to even on the podcast, even such as like Chef Lydia with her story and the different stories of that we've heard. I feel like it does a lot of times when it's kind of a health thing. I wouldn't say that you're like just focused on just straight health. Of course, like it's nutrition, it's good, healthy eating, clean food, all that. But I feel like it always stems from that personal story.
Right.
And I know that you really started to learn, obviously, how to cook and probably eat better, like you said, because of your sister and the things that you were going through with that. And I think that that's really, and I think a lot of clients are looking for that, right? And it's one thing to say, yeah, we can, Chef Andres can probably cook some stuff that's going to, whatever, I can research some macro, micro type stuff. I can read, and I could cook something, but it doesn't have the level of weight when you're doing it right for like you were doing for a loved one. And it's coming from a place of understanding, not only I think with your business, with the actual food itself and what you're serving, but honestly, even just the empathetic side of it, right? The understanding that clients are going through sometimes, and athletes obviously are, they have more of an agenda of like you said, right? We're taking care of our body, we're being healthy, it's our job. But even people that wanted meal prep for those specific reasons, for dietary reasons of, whether it's an illness, whether it's health on a deeper level, it allows you to really empathize with what they're going through as well. And I think that's something that is not necessarily found in every service out there because not a lot of people have been on that side of it, right? So with Chef Lydia, again, she was taking care of her husband when he was diagnosed. And it not only taught her a lot that she was already learning and already into plant-based eating on her in her specific story, but again, just having that empathetic side to it. Do you feel like that has helped you to just even understand the people you serve better, of just really being able to feel like I know how to get into their shoes in the sense of like what they're thinking, what their thought process is? Because it's not easy to transition, I think, for most of us into like, I wouldn't say that we're all eating unhealthy, but again, it's like, how do we make those adjustments to take what we love, turn them into something that tastes amazing and really kind of gives us the comfort of the things that we love, but it's still being beneficiary to us of where we are with our health and with our needs, right? And I think there's all types of things going on. And how do you feel like that's maybe played a role in really helping guide like you with your clients? Like, do you really feel like you have an empathetic side? I just, ever since I've talked to you and I met you and you've been part of Chefpreneur, like I felt like you've always had that true heart. Even ever since I talked to you, you were very adamant about like really wanting to serve people, really wanting to give them the best foot forward of everything that you do and offer, because again, it's kind of like you've been where they are as well.
And that is very, very important to me. Um, because if someone is coming to me and they're requesting a certain diet, whether it's gluten free, whether it's low sodium, whether it's high fat, whatever it is, they're
Mhm.
doing it for a reason. And there's a trust component involved. And so, because I've had to do that and I live that life for the most part, I understand when someone comes in and they say, I don't want this or I do want this, I take that very personal, very serious. Because if that were my sister, if that were me, and someone was coming in and I needed those things taken care of for me, then I would want that same type of response. And so I try to take that to heart. And I think, to be
Yep.
honest with you, Chef, that's the reason probably why I have connections because I think people know that, like when I come in the door, that I'm really serious about my job and what we're going to do and the goals that we're both trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I love that. I, want to make even a little plug for everybody out there for you because, when I've interviewed other chefs and we have some great chefs that we've interviewed. And of course, there's a lot of chefs that we've coached that are really amazing people, but I wouldn't say that all of them, like they're pretty strong in their convictions, but they're not to the extent where they really go that extra mile and that distance where we really feel where you really feel that there are right up there with the importance and the caring just as much as they are, like the clientele of what we would, experience your services with. And like what you said, I think there's you're obviously very personal. You have an amazing smile, all of that. Like you're incredible. You're a sweet, awesome person. But I love what you just said. Like you're also very serious on getting the job done. And what does that mean? Getting the job done for their own benefit, for their own sake, and what you're trying to accomplish with them. And I think again, you're not going to find too many companies, and not just you personally, but the company and the culture that you're building in Culinary Concierge with your team is like it really is truly like completely centered around the goals and the expectations of what the clients need and want. And I think that's again, it's very telling. That's why I just love the name Culinary Concierge because that's what it really is. It's like a concierge is setting you up, right? If you think of even a concierge in a hotel, it's setting you up for like, hey, do you want to experience this? What do you want to do? But they start with, what do you want out of this trip to this hotel, right? You're in New York for 3 days. Is it business? Is it leisure? Are you wanting to see a show? Are you with your wife? Are you just alone on business? Like the needs change based upon what the goals are. And I loved again that name because Culinary Concierge, you're walking into it and you're basically saying, hey, like what is it that you're trying to accomplish? What is the needs that you're trying to hit? Like what are the needs that you have? What are the wants that you want so that we can accomplish those as partners together through the meal prep, through the food, through everything that we're doing working together. So I think that's really, really an important thing that a lot of people just miss. You can get some great service providers out there, but it's hard to find a company that's also going to understand you. There's a famous kind of marketing quote, right? Like that people always used to say, like, "Oh yeah, your clients want to be heard. They want to be heard." But the real truth is, your clients want to be understood. They want you to understand how they feel, what they're going through. And again, that's really cool that God God has taken such a painful time in your life, of course, with your sister, but He's transformed it into a beautiful thing where you actually have that living experience so that you can connect and understand the people you serve better. I think that's very powerful. What do you feel like is your biggest attribute in your services? Like as a company, maybe not just you personally, but as a company and culinary concierge, like just for those listening and watching, like what do you feel like your number one like valuable thing that you guys really provide other than the services of course, but maybe more of a deeper mission kind of oriented thing? What is that? What is your biggest attribute that you feel like you have in culinary concierge?
I think that my communication, I think that communication on the good, bad, and the ugly is very necessary when you're in business. And so
I love that.
if
So
you're
true.
not communicating, then you and I am a stickler on that. So I try to make sure I communicate with my client, and I try to make sure that anyone that's working with us, our communication. Because I think when you have more of a relationship and everybody's relaxed, and even if we mess up, so the client needs to have the comfort to tell us
Hmm.
what we did, and then we need to be able to have the humility to make the correction, and we want that feedback because we want to get better.
I
And
love
so I always welcome open communication, both sides. And I don't want to walk out the door and not know if I didn't do something right, or when I want to know if I did something good too.
Yeah. No,
Um,
absolutely.
the communication to me is key, and then again, it's very personal to me. So I always like to treat everyone with common courtesy and respect, and it doesn't matter to me if you are a professional athlete or you're a school teacher. Everyone gets treated the same.
Yeah.
um, and every we're all people, and
Yeah.
I try to treat everyone equally.
Absolutely. I love I don't think I've heard that answer when I've asked that question before, which is amazing because but if anybody knows me, I'm a stickler as well about that. And even in my recent, maybe the last couple years, I've really gotten to another level of, I wouldn't say pet peeves, but like I don't. If you ask my wife right now, which I don't, she's probably not watching the podcast, but honey, if you are or listening to it, if you ask her, right, like I literally, one of my favorite phrases is like assumptions kill. You have to communicate and just you have to ask questions of like what's really going on. And communication is so key, not only in again like any relationship, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your friend, whether it's your family, but definitely with your clientele and your business as well. It's like communication is key. And we're not perfect. You strive to be the best that you can. And like you've said, and just even in the letdown of communication, sometimes that happens because again, we're human. And things can go missed and things can be, it can be broken as far as the communication line goes. But it is so true. Um, and like what you said, whether you're serving an athlete, whether you're serving a school teacher, I love that you're looking at it very clearly. If you're going to understand their goals, they have to know how to communicate that to you as well, so that you guys have the same expectations of the outcome of what you're trying to achieve. But even in the line of work that you're in with your company, chef, with a lot of these different professional athletes, I think communication also draws heavily a lot of trust. If someone feels like they can communicate truthfully with you, there's a level of trust there, right? And so, like, I love what you said. Hey, you have to be approachable enough with humility for the clients to say, we can tell you the truth. And it's like, yeah, tell me the truth. It's okay. But it builds, when they do that, it builds a level of trust. It gets them to say, okay, I can trust that they're not going to be immature. They're not going to take it, they're not going to take it a wrong way. Because a lot of times, again, even when we're communicating things we don't want to hear, right? The Bible says that you got to speak the truth in love. It doesn't say just speak the truth and that's it, let it rip, because there has to be a loving way about it. Because sometimes the truth doesn't feel good, right? But it also helps us grow and get better. Like you said, like it doesn't feel good when a client tells you that possibly lets you know that you didn't meet their expectation. It doesn't feel good, but that's usually the biggest growth we have is what can we take from that? How can we move forward? I love that answer of communication. And I honestly think that that's a really thing, something that's very missed in business and in commerce of all types right now. It's just a lot of times there's a lack of meeting expectations sometimes, just for the simple reason that they weren't communicated what those expectations were from either side, right? And so it becomes challenging to juggle that. And so I love that. I love that. And I know that you probably have a very thorough process to get to know people, of what their goals are, what they're trying to achieve, so that again, it's very clear in the details set forth so that you can actually help them accomplish it. So that's fantastic, chef. Great answer. Not that you were being graded on your answer, but that's a good answer. I'm really happy you said that. Um, What I'd like to do, Chef, is I'd like to um, I kind of like to flip the script here in this part of the podcast where I kind of get you to just ask me any questions that you want to ask, whether personal, business, or anything like that. But, um, I'm just really inspired by your story, Chef. I know you went a little deeper. And again, what an amazing story of the journey with you and your sister. I think that was something that was really touching. Because again, it's coming from both sides. I love how you're really understanding your clients with empathy, but it also is kind of a little bit. I can feel when you were telling us about it that it's also part of your drive. It's kind of what keeps you going a little bit and business is not easy. It can get tough. It can get frustrating. It can get discouraging. There's all types of emotions we can face. I saw this little Instagram reel the other day that said like business feels like this, where it literally showed a picture of the bank account with $103 in it, and then it shows like it's like Monday $103, Wednesday 71,000, Friday back to $89 in the account. It's still up and down, right? Like sometimes it feels like that, and it also feels that when you were telling that story, there was a personal connection where it's like, yes, I'm empathetic. I can understand my clientele, but on the flip of it is like it kind of internally says we're going to continue to strive to be the best in San Antonio and beyond with what we do, not only to make sure that we pay homage to my sister with starting kind of this journey with me long ago, but also just kind of that personal drive, right? Where it's like, we have to get this service out. People need our help. We're here to help them, and we're not going to stop for anybody, which I love. So,
Absolutely.
but yeah, I wanted to open it up on any questions you have for me, anything that you wanted to discuss. And, I don't know if there's anything brewing in your mind at all or anything that you want to throw at me.
Yeah, so you know what my goals are. So I am having the hardest time like letting go. And what I
Okay.
mean by that is like as a chef, I want to step out and I want to focus more on sales and retention and marketing. But I'm just how do you do that? How did you do that? That has been such a struggle for me.
Okay. Yeah. Good question. Let me first, by using your words, communicating. Let's communicate. I want to dive a little deeper. I want to get a little more specific on when you say stepping out, what are you trying to give me more detail on what that means?
I would say if I could only chef 2 days a month because the business it's all in place and it's running like a well-oiled machine, that would be great.
Okay.
Um, but sometimes I like, do I the trust level, and when it's your baby, it's kind of hard, just to let go in that aspect. So not
I
stepping
see.
out,
Okay.
but kind of just pulling the strings.
I see what you're saying. So you're struggling with somewhat micromanaging and feeling like you have to be actually the one cooking because you're trying to figure out, not necessarily like, oh, is anybody going to do it better than me or not as good as me? Like there is a level of that, if we're being honest, because I know I'm sure you trust the people around you. But at the same time, it's like, how do you let go of moving into like more of an upper role into your business? Am I understanding that correctly?
That is correct.
Okay. Well, um, I would be lying to you if I said that I just had all this courage and knew to step out and start doing that. I am sometimes one of those people that I perform when my back's against the wall, sometimes better, actually most of the time better than when it's not, right? If I'm self admitting some things here, that's me. When I'm kind of like feeling like I'm in a high pressure situation, that's when I feel like I perform the best. And that's where I make the biggest moves. Some people are not necessarily that way. I'm trying not to be that way because I don't want to continue to sometimes feel like I have to put myself in a position like that in order to do things. But in my personal chef business, my personal story on that and my personal kind of opinion is, when I started Chefpreneur now, and it was like 2018-ish, is when we officially launched like our first program. So it's been a minute, right? It's been, what is that? It's almost like 7 years. And when I did that, started with the podcast, started with different things. And the reason I'm telling a little bit of the backstory here is because I was actively cooking as well in my business. I didn't know what to expect with Chefpreneur. Chefpreneur obviously does take quite a bit of time. Um, and I started to look at it and I started to think to myself, how do I juggle all this? Okay. Now, quite a while ago, around 2016, I would say, maybe even a little bit before, but probably middle of 2016, Chef Daniel, who's now like my main executive chef in my company, started with me. And it started by him coming in, being a sous chef, helping with events, and then eventually, like, I remember the day that I gave him like a five top, like a little private party for five, and he was so nervous because it was like his first event on his own, and it's crazy because it was scary just as much as for him probably as me because it was in the same thing. Now, I didn't relinquish so many events to him at the time because again, it was like my main source of income. I was like, this is how I make my living. So there was a play a little bit on finances, but there also was the same reservations that you have, which is it going to deliver an Andres experience, right? So to simply put it, number one, I realized early on that I had to make sure that the brand was the one that created the reputation. If I can at least make the brand have the reputation, the responsibility of the brand is still on me as the head, but the reputation necessarily is not solely in my hands. We look at the brand and the business as a brand in a business that has its own reputation, almost like it's its own person. Okay, so that was number one. And that happened a long time ago when I was doing my first events. I was just kind of advertising as Chef Andres Hinojosa. Like that was my website legitimately. I didn't have dinner with a chef. I didn't have like a company necessarily like you do now and like I do now. And so even early on, I started discovering that, like, okay, when I switched to being dinner with a chef, which was before Chef Daniel, I started learning, like, okay, good. It's because I was kind of getting overwhelmed sometimes. I'd be get three inquiries for a Saturday, and I was like, I hate turning down like events. I hate turning down revenue. What do I do? So when I brought on Daniel and it started to progress, I still was very uneasy, not because of Daniel, and I think that I want to make that clear. I'm sure that you're not looking at your team and different people like, oh, I don't trust them at all. It's our own thing, right? It is. It's hard to, a newborn in a mom's arms. The first time that the mom says you can watch my child as like a babysitter or a nanny or something, oh, it's anxiety to the max because that's your baby. That's your baby. So it's the
Exactly.
same thing with your business. So the first thing is the brand. The second thing I would have to say is if you're a type of person where you need to let go and you have to be forced to let go when you're in a position, put yourself in that position because that's what I, again, unknowingly did. As Chefpreneur started growing, I was doing coaching calls, I was doing this, I was doing that. And then I was trying to juggle cooking and I put myself in the hospital a few times with panic attacks and body was, high blood pressure and all types of stuff because I was just so overwhelmed. And then what happened was I had to relinquish control. And then it got to a point where I was like, oh my gosh, that felt good. Then I did it again. And then I did it again. This is what's crazy. When I first moved from Georgia, 2021 is when we moved because I think, yeah, the pandemic was 2020. 2021, we moved to Georgia. We've been here about 3.5 years now, a little over 3.5 years. That same year that we moved here in July, I flew back because we had a wedding for 145 people plated. Now I know it sounds like a big number. We are a personal chef company, but we don't advertise big events, but we charge them the same way that we charge the personal chef event per person plus grocery, and it's very lucrative. And I flew back to work with the team because that was a big event. Like I would really only go to the big events when I needed them. Eventually, like right before I left, I was cooking a lot less already, but I'd still go and do this event and do a bigger event and all that stuff. But then the following 2 years in 2023, we had our biggest function in dinner with a chef ever, 300 people, and I did not fly back. And it was Chef Daniel, and they knocked it out of the park. I mean, the lady's only critique when I asked her, be honest, what was it? She's like, well, I would have liked a lot more platters brought from you guys for the cheese and the charcuterie setup. And I'm thinking, if that's all you got for us for 300 people, we did a pretty freaking good job. So, some encouragement to go from that to where it's like nervous about him taking his first event at 5 people to him managing 300 people was massive for me. And I feel like that was like almost like a test. Don't ever feel bad about this. And this is a thing that I'm learning with every single part of Chefpreneur as the business grows, and Dinner with the Chef as the business grows. Micromanaging is only micromanaging when you are doing it without needing to.
Right.
Training is not micromanaging. Being very specific on how you want things done is not micromanaging. Once they're trained and they're producing the experience the way you want them to, and then you're nitpicking all the time, that is micromanaging. But you also need to hire the right people and really make sure that your team has 2 important things. Number 1, the attitude, yes, but I think that I used to say, as long as somebody has a good attitude, I can train them on things, which is true. But as your business grows, you need to depend more on competency as well. And so, number 1, train, train, train. Slow to hire, quick to release, but also train, because the more you sow seeds into them and invest into your team, the more that you're going to feel the level of trust. Now, mentally, you do have to just break that cycle. And like I said, you might be like me where you have to literally put yourself in a position where you're so busy that you can't physically do that anymore. And it forces you into take the higher position. And once you get forced into taking the higher position, and then you see that it usually works out for the better, you're like, why didn't I do this sooner? Why was I holding back on this so much? Okay. So make sure that they have the right attitude. They're also competent. Make sure that you're training them really well. And if I was you, I'd spend time on like one person to train them very well so that you can then lean on them as a pillar in the company. As the company grows, people lean on them. And that's what I've done with Chef Daniel. He's managing the scheduling. He's managing what chefs he's sending to what events. He's analyzing it. I mean, we have a guy named Alex who's one of his good friends, and the guy's a French fitness trainer, okay? Has an amazing accent, right? So he's already kind of like, it's already a little bit of an experience when you get him as a server, right? But he started as a server, kind of helping Daniel. Then he kind of moved into like a sous chef role, and he's done now 3 events on his own. Okay, this is a French fitness trainer turned server, turned sous chef, turned chef on an event. And Daniel's like, Chef, he's ready. He's like, Chef, do you trust me? I'm like, I trust you. He's like, he's ready. I'm going to send him. Now, he's not sending him to 20 people, 30 people events. He's sending him to 5 people, 6 people. He did his biggest one, I think, 10 people with a server, his last one. All 3, 5-star reviews, big tips. He's doing amazing.
Awesome.
And so not only have I seen that I've invested into Daniel, but now Daniel has also taken that culture and he's investing into people, building them up. And that's how you grow a great company and a great organization.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to just say, Chef, let go. I get it. But don't let go. Again, we don't let go. We don't say, you know what, you gotta just let go and not micromanage. So you know what, honey, you're 12 years old, but get in the driver's seat of the car. We're going for a ride. Like, no, we don't do that. Like, you're probably both going to get in a car accident. Right? So you have to train them properly. There has to be competence levels. There has to be, of course, the attitude to learn. And then they have to execute with your training and guidance. And then, yes, Miss Chef Rochelle, if you do not let them go, then you are micromanaging eventually. But it's okay to train for a while. So I like to start off with a 90-day plan. I bring somebody on, I have them shadow me for a couple times, and then I have them kind of be my assistant a couple times. And then I give them the ability to say, okay, can they be trusted here? Like, you're kind of doing a little bit of an internal review. Like, can we actually take them there where they can handle one client on their own, one cook day? Then you test that out. The other thing that you have to understand too, just like children, when you're teaching them how to ride a bike and you're holding onto their seat, there's sometimes a 50% chance where when you let go, they might wobble and fall. Okay. But there's a big chance that they're going to wobble, but still keep it going. And even if they fall, It's not like, well, that's it. You'll never be able to ride a bike. No, they get back up. So there has been, unfortunately, shortcomings from chefs that we've sent to the events many, many, many times. Everything from burning whole grills down to broken tiles to breaking plates of that grandma passed down for 128 years. That was a doozy one. That was a very emotional one for a client, right? And we got through them.
Yeah.
And the most important piece is if the team that you're looking at and coaching and wanting to really appoint to take over those things, you also have to show them trust. You can't just say, just like anything else, just like our children, just like anybody that we have, you can't just like they make a mistake and it's like, well, now we'll never be able to trust you to like earn that back ever. Well, no, like that's unfair to them. You have to give them some chances. You have to make it right. Now, if they're just like, if they're incompetent, then it's like, okay, this has happened twice, 3 times now. It's a problem. But there's also guests again. We all know that customers are not always not always right. But you have to look at every aspect as well. So I hope that helps you. Like it's okay to understand. And I also think that you maybe just to give you an appointment is like you sometimes need to hear it from an outside source of where you belong. And when I say that, not in a rude way where you belong, that sounds bad, but I'm saying where the best position for you is. That's the other side of it too. Is Chef Rochelle the best at just going out and doing events and being stuck in the day to day, or is she better to be the ones calling the training coaches of the Spurs, the training coaches of the sports teams? Is she the one better to do the consultations over the phone? Is she the one better to reach out to partnerships? I would say yes,
I
especially
love
with your sales background. And so if you could just train them on the experience and doing a really good job there where they're just hyper focused on one thing, believe it or not, they might even do a better job than you. And I say that with all respect because when you're doing the job now, you're doing that plus all these other things.
right.
If you're saying, I'm going to train them so good that they're just going to go and cook for our clients and have it be world class from culinary concierge, and that's the only thing I want them focusing on. They're not focused on scheduling and invoicing and consultations. They're reading the notes, they're being scheduled, they're showing up prepared, they have their SOPs when they show up to the event, to the cook day, to the meal prep, to the client's house, and they're just executing repetitively these amazing experiences. Believe it or not, some of them might actually do a better job than you because that's all they're focused on, which allows you to then focus on bigger and better things to grow the company, to bring them more clients, and the business starts to grow. So look at it as an opportunity to not necessarily just let go, but at the same time, like if you let go, you'll let it grow. That's kind of a little saying I have.
Yeah.
And so, but only let it go if the person can actually steer and drive the car. Don't just give the keys to somebody who can't do it, right? So, I don't know if that helped you at all. Like, if you feel like, Chef, I don't have the team that I need to be able to let go, well, then that's not a micromanaging problem either. That's haven't found the right person to let go. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, it was absolutely very beneficial, and I appreciate that. There is an individual, a chef actually, that contacted me because she has some connections with the Spurs, and she knows about my company. Sorry,
It's
and
okay.
I'm interviewing her next week. And so,
Awesome.
with those goals, as to what you just mentioned, so it might be a great opportunity because she already knows me and my reputation. So
Yeah.
I'll let you know how that goes.
Yeah. And like I said, take it slow. There's no need to jump right into where it's like, hey, I'm coming into this, and then quickly you're just putting her on a client. It's okay to take it slow. And by the way, that positions you as a company for that chef to also, um, I don't want to say take it more seriously within culinary concierge, but it will, right? They will, because they'll look at it like, well, she's really vetting me out. And sometimes it's just enough to just, shoo away the shoemakers per se, right? That they come in and they're like, oh, like they don't think I'm that good. It's not even a lack of trust. It's like if they respect that, they understand that you're building a brand, you have a company reputation. like we talked about, the brand has a reputation. We uphold those to high standards. And so, but once you're in, if you passed and you're in, it's not because it's out of desperation. It's because we chose the right person. I've learned this, maybe I've learned this pretty hard this last few years with different members of our team, where they're like, okay, they had some level of competence, but poor communication, poor skills on other ends that really affected the company. And just because, it wasn't dealing with cooking, even in Chefpreneur with different things, I won't mention specifics, but like it's like their job of what they're producing was like cooking. They can make good food, they could do the job in the primary thing, but the communication was lacking, the professionalism was lacking, and it affects the entire team. And it's like, it's always a balance. You need competency, you need attitude, you need the levels of different skills for different positions. If you send a bitter Betty out to a client that doesn't smile, looks like they're pissed at the world all the time, that's probably not gonna reflect culinary concierge with your big beautiful smile that you have. It's not going to reflect what the company is. Doesn't mean that they need to be happy-go-lucky jumping off the walls. That's not what we're saying either. But they have to have some level of competency with communication skills with people, understanding empathy, understanding professionalism. They can't come in chewing gum all loud and, hey, I'm the chef. Like it would be a horrible experience. It wouldn't be professional. So, you have to be very selective, and always remember that just like you're attracting clientele, Chef Rochelle, this is for everybody listening to this as well. When we start looking for chefs on how to contract, always remember, just like when you're attracting and trying to attract the right client, you also need to market for the right people. And that your brand and what you say and how well you define that level of detail in your business of what it's about, what the mission is, and what you guys do and who you guys serve. This is where it's like you have to, you really have to almost market the company that way to attract the best people.
Yes.
And you have to filter them out. I mean, when I coach people on hiring, like contracted chefs and bringing them on your team and all that stuff, the first thing I tell them is you lay it right out. Like, this is a serious, like, we are a small company right now, but we have serious vision and goals that we're trying to achieve. And we want people to come alongside us and help us build Culinary Concierge to be the best personal chef, you know, brand in San Antonio that focuses on XYZ. And if you don't want to come in, if you're looking for just another side gig, if you're looking for just a quick buck, if you're looking for this or that, please don't reach out to me. Like, I'll say it straight out on LinkedIn ad, don't reach out to me. But if you're wanting to come lock arms with us and be a part of something incredible, to build something that's incredible for the future for all of us, to grow clientele, where you feel like you almost have your own little small business within this brand, then please send me a 1-minute video, DM me a 1-minute video why I should even talk to you. Now, that sounds really arrogant, but here's what it does. 50 people look at that, 3 people respond. The 3
Right.
people that respond probably are going to have some level of seriousness to them. And then out of those 3, you probably will find pretty solid candidate. And it allows you to kind of get rid of all of that. And from the very beginning in the precedent, you're setting an expectation where there's a high standard that Chef Rochelle and the company have, and that we're not looking for B players, we're looking for A++ players. And so need not apply if you're just kind of kick the can down the road. No offense. We love you. Be blessed. Do what you do. There's other companies that'll take you because they're desperate for hands. We're not that. We're looking for the right person. And it might take you 3 months. It might take you 2 months. It might take you a little bit. But once you find that person, it opens up a world of possibilities. And you're still training them. You're still instilling that culture and vision. But that's what I think I think too many people do a lot of external marketing for clients, and we don't do enough internal marketing for finding the right candidates within that. And recently, Heidi, my assistant, has really put together a really good SOP on, like, okay, if we're looking for a team member of Chefpreneur or whatever, like, of course, you start with the job role. What do you specifically need them to do? You have to know that as well. Like, what do you want to expect from them? What do they need to know? What kind of level of competency they need to have? But then it goes into, like, interview, send this message, tell us why, send them this. interview them once with her, then it goes into an interview with me, then maybe a third interview. And then by that time, it's like, let's give you a shot. And even then I'm weary. And it's like, let's do a trial. Let's do this. And then it's like, okay, now you're kind of in the gates. Right. And so if you play a little hard to get, usually you get better quality of both sides. You're more committed to them because of the time you've invested in them. And they're more committed to you because they applied, they didn't apply to go to, Bunkie State. They applied to go to Harvard and they got in, and they're going
Right.
to take it more seriously. So you are the Harvard in your company. That's the way you have to perceive it. And to let anybody in is an honor, not just for them, but also for you. And you finding them is an honor for you to say, wow, we found somebody great. We're locking arms and let's move forward. So,
I love that.
trust your gut instinct, chef, as well. If you feel like, and it sounds like you're just in the beginning stages, but when this starts to happen, if you can tell, you're a smart woman. You can tell if it's like your gut saying, I can't relinquish because of them. You can tell versus I'm not relinquishing because of me. You can tell that.
Yeah.
Like, and you'll know it. So at that point, you just have to cross the old honesty bridge for yourself. Like, it's me at this point. It's not that. It's not them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So now in my business, full transparency, I just talked to Daniel about his menus and he's really stepped up his game. He was using this one Canva template that I did not like. That's me being nitpicky. But it's like when sometimes I look more under the hood, right? Because things are flowing and they're moving very efficiently within Dinner with a Chef. And I look in the hood and I'm like, oh my God, that's a horrible menu. It's like wine spilt on a piece of paper. I hate the design. He's like, everybody loves it. And he's Italian. And I'm like, no, nobody loves it. Like, I don't love it. Like, nobody, you know. But it's like, wait a minute. You've been sending that for the last year. Clearly, we're not losing bookings from a spilt menu, kind of, in my opinion, ugly looking menu on Canva.
Right.
So is it really of importance? No, but then I kind of refine, hey, use this menu. It's a little bit more matching with our brand. And now he's using it. But sometimes there's silly things that don't really move the needle. Does that make sense? You know what I
Right.
mean? And there's other things where it's like it actually does move the needle, right? So, not to say that the more you don't know, the better it is, because that would be bad advice. But I'm saying, like, I looked under the hood a little bit, and I'm like, I found that, and I was like, cringe. I was like, no, don't use this. Why are you using this? Anyway, that's a little side story. And I love you, Chef Daniel. I know he's not watching this; he's too busy cooking, but if he was, he would understand because we had this conversation. I have nothing to hide from that. So,
Yeah.
great
No.
question. Great question. Hopefully that helped you.
No, it really did help me. It really did. And I was listening to a very successful entrepreneur here, and we all know and love her. I won't mention her name, but one of the things that she said was, if you find somebody as good as you or better, embrace them and bring them in. And so
Yeah.
that's how I want to feel, and that's what I want to do. Somebody better than me.
Yeah.
Doesn't want to have to worry about the business, doesn't just wants to focus on the experience, and I can take care of the rest of it. So yeah, it's going to be a special course. It's going to be a great opportunity for them and me. That advice that you gave was great. Thank you
Well,
so
thank
much.
you. No, thank you. Like, yeah, you get, for all of you listening that have a business or want to start a business, including you, Chef Rochelle, like, uh, I always say if you're not earning 2 to 3 PhDs a year, and I've kind of coined the PhD of, like, not in the college sense. I use it as kind of an expression, right? Because you're learning constantly through mistakes, through trial and error as an entrepreneur. But for me, PhD stands for pretty hard. And so I kind of say, like, if you don't go to 2 or 3 pretty hard things throughout the year, you really did not learn very much. But as an entrepreneur, you're constantly learning those things. And these types of things are hard. It's hard to, like, but eventually it's going to be hard to be like, oh, I got to go cook an event. And then you're going to be like, I don't want to, and it's going to be hard to, like, maybe raise up and fill the gap when you don't have that. And it's kind of funny, like, how it works. But not that you're complaining. I'm just saying, like, you get into these things and then you're going to find challenges within what you're doing. So, like, you'll relinquish some of the cooking and all that. And then you'll come in and then you'll start doing that. And you're like, oh, I got to find somebody to do this. And then all of a sudden it's like, it's like starting over with different positions and different people. And sometimes as well, like I've learned this just this last year, uh, when you do like talent acquisition, you find people to come in and you see that and you feel like you found, a racehorse, like you found a good pony to take to the, to take to the race, and you bring them in, and then all of a sudden you're like, you know what? Maybe that wasn't the best position for you, but you're a stallion. Like, and then sometimes you shift gears and you're like, you know what? The more you get to know them, even, you're like, I think you might actually be better at doing this instead of this. And then you make those little adjustments and it's like, whoa. And that actually happened to us this last year with a team member in Chefpreneur. And I was like, we originally hired her for this. And then it was like, but you're so strong over here. And we didn't really realize some of those skills until we started working with her. And not that she couldn't do this other job, she could do it, but was it the best for her? Then we moved her over here and it was like, it just like, she just boom, took that thing and rock and rolled it and was like, oh, you're better than me. Your patience is way more than mine on that, all those things. And it's like, wow, that just, and so when it clicks and it finds it as well, like, quality people, again, competency, fast learner, but good attitude, willing to learn, willing to understand the mission and the vision, and hit it straight on with you, is probably, the biggest thing. So I love that, Chef. Any other questions? Another question before we maybe wrap up the podcast today.
I was just going to ask you real briefly I know, what do you think are the three most important things to have a successful business?
A successful business, period.
Period.
That's a tough one. I would say number one, you have to have a lot of conviction in what you offer. I would say that's number one because it stems from you being in the game and continue to push when other people will give up.
Yeah.
Conviction is also something that people can really feel. If you truly believe in your product or service, people eventually naturally will start to believe that as well. Of course, there's aspects of sales and marketing and how to position it and the messaging and all that. Don't get me wrong, there's details, but it starts with the conviction of you. And I think that's really important. Number two, I really believe that you have to be absolutely a sponge and wanting to learn constantly. If you have levels of pride, and we all do, it's your number one enemy, in my opinion, in the business. There's nothing wrong with confidence. Confidence is one thing. Confidence is getting to understand a skill, mastering skills, and becoming better and better at that every day, which brings a natural level of confidence. I mean, Kobe Bryant was very confident in what he did. But why did he work so hard? Because he was like, tomorrow I could be better. And
Yeah.
that is showing you that his mindset was, I'm confident where I'm at, but I haven't arrived. Right. So there's a famous minister, Andrew Womack, that says all the time, we're always falling short of God's, of who really, like, we all fell short of the glory of God, really, right? But we have that through his son Jesus. But he always says, like, we haven't arrived when it comes to righteousness on our own, right? Of course, like, we have righteousness through Jesus, but I'm saying, like, even our own living a righteous way. But he says, I haven't arrived, but I've definitely left the shore. So we have to understand that we're constantly, number two, we have to constantly be learning and to try to push down our levels of pride, because pride will completely eat you up, in my opinion, in business.
Yeah.
Again, not confidence. Confidence is one thing, but pride can really take you down when it comes to, like, oh, I know better than everybody. Nobody can teach me anything. That's honestly, that's a very poor mindset. It's a poor mindset. And number three, you have to have, in my opinion, just a level of grit, which goes back to conviction.
Yeah.
I think that, like, if I had to pick between every skill that you need to master, if we talked about practical skills, learning how to sell and market is the most dollar for dollar valuable skill. However, it's hard to say that all the time, because if you're so good in a company where you're able to sell and market and you continue to drive revenue, but you don't have a skill set of being a great leader,
Right.
uh, you got a really fast boat and you got nobody to help you control it. And that's going to be ending up in a disaster.
Yeah.
So there's all those types of skills, but that's where it comes down to grit as well, like determination of achieving not even necessarily a financial goal, but achieving to set out what you do and an unrelenting waiver for that achievement. That's where the world changes. Those are the entrepreneurs that literally change the world. The
Yeah.
ones that have absolute conviction, number one. The ones that have a level of humility to learn constantly. And three, the will to go on. Galatians 6:9, I've said it on this podcast before, say it again, one of my top 3 scriptures of all time. Do not grow weary of doing good, for at a proper time you'll reap a harvest if you do not give up. It doesn't even say if you just kneel down and pray more. It says literally, like, if you do not give up. There's so many times that we're so close to the gold. We're so close to the end of the rainbow, per se, just using some funny metaphors here, that we give up, but we give up right before it breaks, right before the levee breaks, right?
Yeah.
And so, because somebody who is not going to give up will almost always supersede somebody who's just very intelligent.
Right.
It's just true. That's just fact. Kobe Bryant had a lot of. I love Kobe. I don't know. I'm a huge fan of Kobe, by the way. For those of you guys who don't know, Black Mamba. Boom, let's go. I love his mentality. But when you really listen to his interviews, he had such people are like, oh, he's so competitive. It went deeper than that. His mentality was why he was so good.
Yeah.
Did God give him the skills of being naturally like tall? Yes. Does he have natural talent of playing basketball? Absolutely. But his natural talent wouldn't have made him Kobe. It would have made him possibly NBA. Who knows? But his unrelenting, like people would even ask why even have, like, what else do you need to achieve? Like, you're already an amazing player. And for him, it's not even beating him anymore. It's beating himself. Same with Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods, probably even more of a mindset guy than anybody I've ever seen, because golf is a very, very individual sport, right? Kobe can pass the ball, dunk it, and carry some weight, and then 16 other people fell at making their free throws or whatever, and like you can lose the game still. Golf, you're playing yourself, which is probably the worst opponent you could ever have. And so, like, I was just watching a little clip of, maybe I should play it and post it and do a little video on it, because he literally shanked this ball. He threw it out of the trees. He hit the bunker. I mean, it was a disaster of a hole. And then the next hole, he nails it and puts it in for an eagle. The fact that he came from a horrible playing hole, which you should be pissed off about, upset, and not be good mindset, and go over here and then all of a sudden just create an eagle. People don't realize how hard it is to do that mentally. And then everybody's watching in some tournament. It's next level mentality.
Right.
And so grit and determination and how to get over things quickly and just keep your eye focused no matter what happens in the past is probably the third thing. That's a hard one. I don't even know. Hopefully those amount to the 3 I would say I on the spot, but those are what I feel, because skills can be learned. But they can be learned without an open mind of knowing that you need to learn it, number one, right? So it all goes back to these core 3. I'm going to rest my case on those 3. Hopefully those are literally accurate of what I feel, but that was a you gave me a little bit of a question there. I like that. You challenged me.
No, those were awesome. Those were awesome. And I say to anyone doing anything that you want, it's your passion and you're good at it, and you say, but it's hard. It's hard to build it. It's hard to do this. It's hard to do that. And so my response to that is pick your heart. Pick your heart.
True.
Because it's going to be hard either way. But when you're doing something that you really believe in, you're convinced about it, you're determined to make it work, and then you have the right mentors such as yourself. And this is where this is going. When you have a partnership such as Chefpreneur that allows you to have the confidence to go forward in that hard path with all of the support along the way, makes it all the more worth it. So I just want to say thank you for all that you do for us as fellow chefs, and you have definitely given us a system that we feel like we can thrive in. And so the hard is good, and you
Yeah.
make the hard even better.
Life's hard already. You might as well
Yeah,
be. You might as well just go through it being hard for something that's worth it.
that's right.
Right?
Exactly.
Amen. Um, well, Chef, I want to give you a little plug. Listen, if you're out there and you're looking for amazing services as a personal chef to do meal prep, events, all types of things, please look up Culinary Concierge in San Antonio. Chef Rochelle will take great care of you, of course. We all know that. In fact, she'll probably care more than you do about what your experience you're going to provide. So make sure you reach out to her. Chef, if you want to give us the website, just to put it out there, make sure everybody knows how to find you. What's the best way to find you?
YourCulinaryConcierge.com.
YourCulinaryConcierge.com. I love it. Look her up. Reach out to Chef Rochelle if you're looking for a great personal chef experience in San Antonio. Chef, again, I want to say thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate your time, and I'm just really excited we got a chance to do this today. And God bless you. Continue to pray for your business, and keep crushing it, Chef.
Thank you so much. This was awesome.
Thank you. Take care, guys. Make sure you like, subscribe to the podcast if you're listening to it. Hit that like button, share this podcast to inspire somebody. Again, God bless you. We love you, and we'll talk to you guys soon.